Hello everybody, and welcome to our first session of the GATM webinar series titled Crisis Collaboration, How ATM Industry Collaboration Can Support Recovery for COVID-19. Thank you all for taking the time and being here with us today. A few things to mention before we get started. We will be conducting a few polls throughout the session, and we're also answering questions. So if you wish to submit a question, you can do so in your panel on the right-hand side of the screen. We have some great speakers with us today, and our moderator, Stuart Radcliffe, Senior Consultant from Metron Aviation, will be introducing them shortly. If you miss anything, don't worry, we'll be sending around the recording as soon as it's available. Without further ado, I will hand over the mic to our moderator, Stuart, and I hope you enjoy our first webinar to help the ATC community move forward and stay connected during COVID-19. Over to you, Stuart.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be part of this webinar. I'd just like to say we currently have 122 attendees listening and watching. It's growing all the time, so there's obviously a great interest on this subject, and we certainly hope that the four panelists are going to be able to give us some insight on the situation in the ANSPs and the airlines. We've got a nice cross-section of people on the panel who'll be able to give us insight. We're certainly in a very strange environment at the moment, both in our personal lives and in our professional lives. It's certainly nothing like I've experienced before, and we all are hoping that recovery is going to come soon, and particularly in the aviation industry, I think it's taken a very serious knock, and it's going to take us a while to get back. So we really need to be working together and collaboratively on how we're going to recover from this. So we're going to be looking at how the industry can support ANSPs, building a collaborative contingency plan, and how to reduce operational costs, both for the ANSPs and for the airlines. So to get straight into it, firstly, I'd like to introduce our panelists for the day. We have, first of all, myself, as you see, I'm Stuart. As said, I work for Metron Aviation. I'm also very involved with CANSO as the co-chair of the ATFM work group. We're very active currently in doing all sorts of initiatives to try and help ANSPs in this particular time of recovery. And I work for Metron Aviation as a company who specializes in air traffic flow management, supplying systems, and also supplying consultancy services. Then we have Jeoffrey Matshoba. Jeoffrey and I go back a long way. We used to work together in ATNS. Jeoffrey is still with ATNS. He's the executive ATM manager in the CNS department, planning and standards. Then we have Edson Gomes from ATFM business development, ATEC company. We have Alex from Aeronautical Services Manager with an airline in the Middle East region. And then Attila Simon, Director of Business Development of Hungaro Control. They'll each give a little bit more of a background of themselves when they come to answer the questions. So we would just like to see who we're talking to. So we currently have, it's now jumped up to 142 people are out there. We'd just like to know who we're talking to. It's always good to know who your audience is. So if you could just have a look at the poll that's come up on your screen, and it should be interactive, and you can just click on one of the selections which apply to you. Hopefully you don't work for two or involved in two of those. So if you could just click those, and we'll take about 30 seconds for that all to come through, and we'll give you some feedback of who's all on the webinar today. So it's still Okay, it's closed. So if you haven't clicked by now, you're too late. So there's the results. We're seeing that there's a high percentage of ANSPs, which is really good. Airline is 12%, airport 5%, technology solution provider 41%, and we also have 8% of government and civil aviation authority. So it's a nice spread. It's a good spread of stakeholders involved with ATM, and it's really good to see so many people attending the webinar. Thank you very much for joining. So let's dive right into our first discussion point. As Jody has mentioned, please feel to submit questions, and we will endeavor to answer them as best as we can. You can submit questions as the speaker is speaking, the panelist is speaking, and after he's completed his talk, we will endeavor to answer the questions. So our first question is, how can the industry support the essential air navigation service providers? So I'm going to direct that question to Attila. I would like you to start the discussion on this, Attila. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Stuart. Good afternoon, everyone, and Ramadan Kareem to all of our Muslim colleagues and partners around the globe. Yes, a couple of words before I'm just getting started about Hungarocontrol. Hungarocontrol is the Hungarian ANSP, and before the crisis, we used to manage a bit more than 1 million flights a year. And not only in the Hungarian airspace, but we've also managed the Kosovo upper airspace as a part of our assignment. I'm heading the business development, and I was happy to see the results of the poll that there were equal numbers of ANSPs and technology provider partners, like 40%, somewhere around that among the visitors, which shows the importance of the collaboration not only within the ANSP industry or the ATM industry, but also with the technology partners. I myself have a background also in technology, in IT technology. I joined Hungarocontrol a bit more than 3 years ago, and I had a background, as I mentioned, in technology and IT with system integration. And being responsible here for strategy, for projects, and also for R&D, I can pretty much emphasize the importance of technology and technology development, especially throughout the years of the crisis. So referring to the question, just a couple of figures and numbers. We've just experienced the lowest traffic in mid-April in Hungary, which was approximately 93% below the last year. But ever since, we experienced a very slow tendency. Just in May, some airlines, including Wizz Air and some others like KLM and Ryan, started some operations, but it's a very slow pace. And I'm quite sure that all of you know all the Eurocontrol forecasts and all these forecasts which are about how to develop the traffic in the future, and which are the curves which will define the future developments. And these developments are still quite uncertain. So what we think, it's crucial to have a very, very safe legal and also financial background for all the ANSPs, which means that being a critical part of this ATM infrastructure, this stability needs to be maintained, which requires a close cooperation among ANSPs and also a cooperation and joint decision-making with airlines and with other stakeholders within the industry. All in all, we think that, and that's Hungarocontrol points as well, we think that we would like to have the performance schemes rules to continue, and we wouldn't like to have anything to overrule these, because these are the guidance and the guidelines for our future. Above all, we think that it's very important, especially during these crisis days, to speed up developments that can bring cost reduction, so being cost-efficient operations. We are pretty much a pioneer in these technology developments. I mean, I would like to just mention the remote tower operation, which is currently during these days are also operational, meaning that we're using the remote tower operation for the Budapest airport 12 hours a day in the day shift. And that technology can also help us a lot to reduce costs. We also think that collaboration on a technology level is also very vital. So we've continued all these cooperations, what we've started earlier, having data connection among ANSPs and having a data sharing initiatives among ANSPs, not only on the technological side, but also on the R&D side. One of a good example, and I'm happy to see Jeoffrey here, is the ATNS, where we just recently in a process of setting up a cooperation with them on different R&D topics. We also think that on the top of these data sharing and high-speed data connections, because of the impact of possible operational downtime, the importance of participating in projects together with other industry players in CSER projects are just as important as it's been before. So we think that that the focus on technology and technology improvement will be one of the key of current cooperations, and this is how the industry can help us in the future. Just to bring up a couple of examples: AI, the artificial intelligence, which will be again key to the efficient operation on the long run, can help us a lot. Definitely not on a tactical level, but on a longer strategical level. So pretty much that's my view on that. Is it answering your question, Stuart?
Yeah, thank you, Attila, for that. The questions are coming in quick and fast. Thanks to the attendees for pushing your questions through. So a question here: what are the ANSPs doing to ensure the supply chain is protected? Anybody would like to take that question?
You mean the supply chain of the technology providers, or whom?
The question is just, what are the ANSPs doing to ensure the supply chain is protected? I assume that the question is referring to maybe the continuity of air traffic controllers being available to provide a service to the airspace users once the airlines start operating again.
Well, we are just ensuring the same.
If I may.
Sorry.
Jeoffrey, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it's like you have introduced. Thank you very much for the invitation. Much appreciated. My name is Jeoffrey Matshoba, as it's been mentioned. My background is air traffic control. I started as a trainee in 1991. So I've been to various leadership positions in the ANSP as well as the regulator, but my expertise is more on the airspace management side, but I'm an air traffic controller by profession. So if I understand the question correctly, it's say, what are the ANSP doing to protect the supply chain management? What we have done, or what we're doing in South Africa, is we've got a very, very close relationship with our stakeholder. So any project being of strategic nature, or even a small project that will benefit the industry, it's a collaborative effort between the NSP as well as the industry. So the lockdown, as it is across the globe, it gives us the opportunity to reflect and to plan for when the time comes for the lifting of the lockdowns in various states, as to what are the key projects that we need to identify that will assist the airlines. So in that way, we just not going to embark on the supply chain without involving our partners, which is here, it's the airline operators who are heavily impacted upon by this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Jeoffrey. There was a question here for you as well. Maybe you'd just like to take that quickly. Is how have the ANSPs been affected by COVID-19?
Yeah, thank you. That's a loaded question, Stuart. Thanks for that question. Yeah, so just to paint a picture in South African context, in the month of, we went to lockdown on the 27th of March. But before, obviously, the lockdown, the traffic was starting to begin to be reduced because of the anticipation of the lockdown, which was announced, I think, a week before the 27th. So the traffic movement went down compared to the previous month of February by 18%. And we're already sitting towards the end of February, I mean March, when we went to lockdown. But within that week alone had an 18% traffic decrease. And when you compare that figure to the previous year of the same month, it was around 25%. So, and you know that NSP survives on traffic movement, which obviously translates to revenues. So that has been a huge impact to the NSP. The other matter over and above the traffic movement and the revenue for NSP is the issue of the rollout of projects. So each and every year or for a period of 3 years, you will embark together with the industry, you will agree on various projects that you need to roll out to enable the industry to be efficient and to operate safely within your environment. So those projects will be affected drastically. So all the projects that were under that particular year will have to obviously be delayed up until a later time. And that later time, who knows when will that be? The plan to revise your project plan, it is an issue because a lot of unknown variables at this point in time. You can only paint scenarios as to what do you do in an event that a lockdown is for a period of 21 days. We have mapped out various scenarios, so we anticipate an 8% decrease in traffic movement. The lockdown, if it goes beyond 21 days up to 60 days, you will have a 15% traffic decrease, and if it is beyond 60 days up to 90 days, which is about 3 months, we're talking about 25% traffic decrease, and that's huge revenue for the airline, for the NSP. So the NSP, obviously, they need to determine how to increase their revenue in the absence of traffic movement. The other critical point, which I would like the NSP to think of, is the issue of training, the skills of your air traffic controllers. So air traffic controllers currently, where they are, certain units are closed, they are not active. So that's a huge impact. So when you open, you need to have a plan on how are you going to make sure that when you put the air traffic controllers to be able to provide air traffic management, they are skilled, they've got the ability and competency to be able to do that. And also the training of future air traffic controllers is going to be impacted upon because you can't conduct any training at this point in time. So that's where now your virtual reality kicks in, your artificial intelligence on how you need to continue to provide training to make sure that you have capacity for future years. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comprehensive answer, Jeff. It certainly looks like ATNS have got all the right procedures in place to manage the impact of COVID-19 on the service of air traffic control. I'm going to move on for a question for Alex. Alex, how can we reduce operational costs for airlines with air traffic management procedures?
Thank you very much, Stuart, and good day, everyone. And of course, Ramadan Kareem. My name is Alex, and I will share with you the airline perspective. Well, of course, it's no secret we airlines were in a dire need to preserve the cash. So I don't think I will go too far stating that airline and ANSP relation is not really a chicken and egg situation. No doubt, the financial mechanisms are complex and likely will require state support, but from the airline perspective, we would really like to see ANSPs playing a strong role, assuring continuity and sustainability of the industry. There are a couple of items I would like to cover. They're both of tactical and strategic nature, so I will start with those which are strategy related. Probably the first and foremost is ATC charges. So we have already noticed it, and it's really a good thing. It's a positive sign. A number of ANSPs globally have already offered some sort of relaxation, and primarily those are payment deferrals. Eurocontrol is probably one of the best examples, where a number of states approve a postponement of route and terminal charges payments by up to a year. So this is a significant package worth 1.1 billion euros. So it is definitely of a great help. Sadly, the number of large and busy airspaces outside of Eurocontrol offered little, if any, help with regards to payment deferral. So clearly, there is something needs to be done, and it should be done sooner rather than later. It was interesting to listen to Attila and Jeoffrey about the technology part. So we, as airline industry, we don't have cash at the moment to spare. So we do object to any charges which are believed to be unnecessary. So examples may include space-based ADS-B trials in North Atlantic. We believe current traffic volumes do not require this piece of technology at the moment, or put it this way, this piece of technology does not bring any tangible benefits at this point in time. So clearly we are not willing to pay extra, and while we do not as airline, we are never against technology, we'd never object to any sort of improvements, but at this point in time, we really would not like to see those costs being passed on to the users. We just cannot afford it. Another point would probably include all flight clearances. The nature of ops at the moment is, well, globally, it's probably will be quite fair to say it's an ad hoc cargo operation. So it's a very dynamic type of operations. Airlines came across huge amount of different hurdles in different states. We do understand that those hurdles, that there are good reasons for this. They include all sorts of limitations, including as simple as lockdowns. However, we believe it's absolutely imperative to ensure that those all-flight permits are processed in a timely manner to support today's normality. Failure to do so result in increased operating costs to airlines, or may even result in a loss of business. And lastly, the item which is rather sits with operations or tactical nature. So due to the drop in the traffic numbers, which has already been mentioned by Jeoffrey and Attila, and it's pretty much, again, a new normality globally, we believe that traffic flow management, and specifically the route structure, they become largely irrelevant. So what we do want as an airline, we want to fly the shortest and the most effective route, which is an acronym of UPR, or a user preferred route. Again, there are positive news. A number of ANSPs globally have already offered those opportunities. Among others, those include Brazil, Australia, and even states like Iraq. and some of the Eurocontrol zones states. Sorry. However, we see that there is unfortunately still a large group of states that does not offer any relaxation, not only to the published rule structures, but also to the more penalizing orientation schemes, which are normally there to control large volumes of traffic which are not existent. So we believe that more and immediate work is required to fix those issues. And Stuart, have I answered your question?
Yes, thank you for that. Just very quickly, maybe a question for you as an airline. It's critical for the ANSPs to know what to plan for in the future and what demand they can expect upon their resources. I think right now, many of the airlines just don't know when the restrictions are going to be lifted and when they're going to be able to fly. But when that does start happening, it's critical for the airlines to get that information to the ANSPs to ensure that the correct resources are available to handle that demand that's going to be placed upon them. What plans do the airlines have, just very briefly, if you could just share with us, to share that information with the ANSP and with other stakeholders?
Yes, so from the airline point of view, we work closely with IATA, of course, through the regional groups, so RCGs, and this will probably become the right forum to share this kind of information. However, we also do deal directly with ANSPs, and no later than yesterday, we were in touch with DFS, specifically the Karlsruhe Center, and we were sharing information, helping them to understand what's coming in what's about to come. But Stuart, you rightly mentioned, at this point in time, it's really hard for airline to know what the story is. Too many prerequisites must be met beforehand, and at this point in time, it's just hard to say what the story will look like, even in months' time. But absolutely, we do understand this issue. We do understand that we need to work with our partners, and a number of forums exist for us to share the required information.
Thank you, Alex, for that good response. I'm just going to bounce it back to Jeoffrey to put the ball back in his court. You've heard what the airlines are requesting with regards how the ANSPs can assist them. Any other factors that you may be able to share how the ANSPs can assist the airlines with operating efficiency in this recovery period?
Thanks, Stuart. And yeah, it's challenging times, as it's been said by everybody. So the NSP obviously needs to come to the party, and one way of NSP assisting the airline to be efficient is to make sure that the first thing that you need to eradicate it's the issue of inefficient procedures. So you need to, it's an opportunity now during the lockdown where the restrictions are still in place to make sure that you introduce procedures like your UPRs that are very, very efficient, and revise your airspace to accommodate such efficiency to the airlines. We know that the last thing that the airline would want is it's any delay to their operations. So you need to make sure that from gate to gate operations, they're efficient traffic management, and that's what the NSP can do. The other issue that the partners have with them on the issue of research development, we need to expedite certain projects that were probably going to come later in the years and see if we can't bring those forward for us to be able to assist the airline to achieve certain efficiencies. It is unfortunate that certain investment that we're going to introduce that will assist the airline to be efficient, they'll come at a cost. So we need to appeal to the airline operators to also understand the burden that is faced by the NSP. The cost imposed by the NSP is just about 6% of the overall cost of the airline operator. So we need to move quickly in terms of CNS infrastructure deployment that are very efficient to allow airlines to be efficient. We know that those efficiency benefits will probably only be realized after a year or so, but it's a future benefit that will be for the industry, and we would like to appeal to them to work closely with us, and we'll be transparent. We'll put the numbers on the table for them to have that particular comfort that we are in this together. We understand the pains. I mean, when one airline goes under, it's a pain to the NSP because it's one revenue down. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Jeoffrey. So a question here from the audience. Edson, I'm going to direct it to you. As a system provider, an automation system provider, are you experiencing any cancellation or delaying of implementations of system provision to any ANSPs as a result of COVID-19?
Yes, Stuart, thanks for the question. I could say that we have two different environments here. One, when we are talking about, let's say, system deployment at site. So once that you have to deploy the system at site with hard equipment, you have to move people to there and perform equipment installation, integration, and so on. Basically, most of ANSP that we are currently working, they shut down this kind of operation at site. So we had canceling in this kind of system deployment at site. So this is one environment. But by other hand, regarding software development, we are 100% going on with the process. So ANSPs that we are developing software and system for them. So the job is still on progress. There were not any type of cancellation, and things are going quite well. So at all, we didn't have any kind of cancellation in this environment. So as I mentioned previously, so two hands here at site. So we had cancellation since that we had to avoid people together and so on. And by the other hand, software is still going on process since that everyone is working at home using virtual platforms for developing and even testing and so on.
Okay, thanks, Edson. It's interesting for me to note, as I said earlier on, with Metron Aviation, and we supply ATFM systems, and typically ATFM is required when demand is exceeding capacity to manage the demand and capacity, and we expected there to be a fall off for the requirement for ATFM because right now there's no traffic or very low levels of traffic. But it's interesting to note that some ANSPs are identifying the fact that ATFM is required during this period for recovery and are starting to expedite implementation of ATFM either via procedures or even maybe procurement of ATFM systems, which I think is quite a progressive way of thinking about it, that ATFM is certainly going to assist with the recovery of COVID-19. So there's going to be another poll that's going to appear on your screens now. And it's, should ANSPs invest in new technology to increase efficiency and reduce operating costs, which is a good lead on from what Edson and myself have just said. So if you'd just like to respond to that. While you're doing that, I can just tell you that there's currently 160 people out there listening to this webinar, which is great again. The more education that we can do and sharing information with the various stakeholders is just going to help with the recovery from COVID-19. So if we could just have the results of the poll up on the screen, there we go. So yes, investing in new tech now will reduce long-term costs. A very high rating on that. 77% agree with that statement. We're monitoring the situation and adapting plans accordingly. 21%, and 3% know they should pause projects until demand increases. So a very strong opinion there by the listeners that ANSPs should continue with tech implementation at this current time. And I think ANSPs should take advantage of the fact that they might have the capacity to do new technology implementation at this time. So it's how can upcoming technology help ANSPs reduce costs without losing efficiency and safety?
Okay, Stuart, thanks for the question. I'd like to also thank the Global ATM for hosting us here, and thanks also for Judy for organizing this webinar. My name is Edson Fagundes. I am from ATEC Brazil, and I'm working at ATEC for the past 20 years, most of this time related to air traffic management systems, and currently my role is to develop new business for ATEC in the international market. Before answering directly this question, Stuart, I like to put some premises here that it's quite new in the world. Let's say this COVID-19 has brought to the world new unknown terms, such as social isolation, for instance, but I've never heard this word before, and home office. Most of us are working at home right now. Actually, where we are having this webinar remotely right now. Some years ago, it wasn't possible. Homeschool, yes, most of our kids are having school at home. Actually, my son is next to me right now having homeschool in his virtual learning platform. Lockdown, how many cities are locked down right now, and even countries, right? And also we are experiencing new behaviors. Yes, social behavior, let's say, like if we are in the line, in the queue in somewhere, so keep the distance. Or when we meet someone, oh, don't shake the hands. It was usually the first thing that we did, right? Shake hands, and now and more. So this it's driving us to, let's say, a new type of society. I don't know. In terms of human behavior, and of course we have to make a parallel to that in our industry, let's say in our market, in our aviation industry. And certainly after that, we should expect a new type of environment as well. And mainly address it to the ANSP, which is the focus of my answer here. But how? How can ANSP reduce costs and keeping efficient in this new upcoming world? I will give some examples here, and I'm not talking about the future. I'm talking about right now. A couple weeks ago, ATEC, as I mentioned before, in some types of developments, we are still 100% full force working with the ANSP. And a couple weeks ago, we had FAT 100% remotely, FAT factor acceptance test. So So the ANSP was remotely sit somewhere. Our team was also remotely connected to our virtual platform, and the FAT was conducted 100% remotely and without any kind of loss. It means that the ANSP accepted this part of the system, everything worked well, and the ANSP didn't need to take people from point A to point B in order to perform the fact. It means that the ANSP saved some money in this kind of action. Another example, yesterday I was noticed by our team that instead of a FAT, we had a SAT, a site acceptance test, 100% remotely as well. So, and how we did that? The ANSP staff was all 100% connected to a virtual platform. Only a small part of the team was at site, and we have to create mechanism that the site that we are, or the part of the site that we are performing the acceptance was, we have to prove to the customer that, oh, here is what we are proving, and actually we did it in 3 or 4 days, and this part of the system that should be accepted at site was accepted without no loss. It means that not only the company, but also the ANSP saved lots of money in this kind of procedure, because again, we didn't have to have any concerns about trips or travel insurance to book hotels and so on. Okay, I'm talking about let's say software acceptance. Okay, and in software we just export the display and you can do anything virtually. Okay, but let me give another example. I was talking to a colleague from the United States a couple weeks ago that it's a hardware equipment manufacturer. Okay, and they also did a site acceptance test 100% remotely using webcams, so they could point the camera to the equipment, assemble and disassemble the equipment, and the ANSP user was anywhere in the world looking and watching everything remotely. So once said that, I think that what we are actually facing right now, it's a new way of working. And somehow, so since that the ANSP is ready to take into consideration, so I think the ANSP has to go a step further, and mainly in 2 ways. And again, my point here is how to perhaps give some tips or clues to ANSP to reduce costs. I think the first point here. In the same sense that ANSP are currently using right now remote tower, why not also to start to think about remote center, where the equipment and the system are in the cloud, perhaps air traffic controllers are in some smaller facility, or why not even at home, and of course, ANSP and the regulators has to take into consideration human factors, safety assessments, and all of the decisions into account. But by the other hand, industries is here to support ANSP and regulators to think about this. And let's say think outside the box. All right. Many ANSPs spend lots of efforts and therefore money for keeping infrastructure, staff, quality of staff, training staff, and so on. And for instance, and since that this is not more needed in a remote concept or in a virtual concept or in a cloud concept, so the ANSPs substantially will reduce the costs for keep those infrastructures, those human staffs, technical staffs, and so on. Let's say for instance, our flow management system in India, part of them is 100% in the cloud. Yes, and currently we are developing the mobile flow management concept that basically the users will have can have all the solution here in the palm of in his hands. So it means that the flow management expertise doesn't need to be in some room, in some facility, or in order to then to take their decisions, flow management decisions, to take flow management actions or whatever it needs. It can be done virtually. Another sample, ANSP should start to explore new sources of revenue. For instance, how about to start to think to explore the urban airspace? ANSPs currently are responsible for managing lower airspace and upper airspace. But how about to start to urban airspace? And by urban airspace, I mean we will have unmanned drones to performing deliveries. We will have, it's not the future, it's now. We have Uber, for instance, talk about flying cars, and many airlines manufacturers are performing research in that. So it's just a matter of time to do to this 100% reality. So if ANSP takes care of this kind of airspace, they can start to increase the income or the revenue by applying taxes to this kind of airspace and manage such airspace. So my point here is, just to closing out my speech, Stuart, my point is it's time to ANSP to start outside the box. Of course, keeping in mind safety and human factor issues. And by starting using technology that we are currently using, like this one right now. So think about cloud solutions, remote solutions, virtual solutions, and of course, regulators should support this line of thinking. So thinking about this outside the box. And again, as industries like ATEC, for instance, it's our role to 100% to support ANSPs and regulators on this, and investing on research, investing in technologies, and so on. I think that's it. That's my point, Stuart. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Edson, for that very comprehensive answer. We're going to have another poll now. So it's very interesting for me through my CANSA work. I work in various regions, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. And this morning I had to get up at 4 o'clock and attend a meeting, our KO meeting, to meet with the Asia Pacific time. And one of the topics was recovery plans, ANSP's recovery plans. And it's really surprising to me how few ANSPs actually have comprehensive recovery plans for COVID-19. And we gave a presentation, CANSA gave a presentation on using the Eurocontrol recovery plan that they have, which is available on their NOP site. You can, anybody is welcome to go and load it down. So the question we have, and I'm assuming that a large amount of the ANSPs are in the Middle East region, have you already finalized a COVID-19 recovery plan? This is specifically, obviously, for the ANSPs. While you're doing it, some of the questions the delegates had in this morning's meeting was, well, why do we need a recovery plan? Because we don't know what is going to be coming in the future, when the airlines will start flying, when the countries are going to be opening up. And so a plan needs to be in place, and it needs to be a dynamic plan to evolve with the ongoing recovery that is going to take place. So if we could just have the results of that up now, thank you. So it's evident there that yes, ANSPs need to be fully prepared for the recovery plan, and it's 42% there. So we got 42% of people saying no, we're in the process of developing a recovery plan. Yes, but we are expecting flight demand to steadily increase, and that's at 16%. It's actually an ICAO requirement that there should be contingency plans and recovery plans for this. So I can only encourage ANSPs to ensure that they do have recovery plans in place. So that's going to lead me on to a question for Attila. How can we prepare a collaborative contingency plan for recovery from COVID-19 going forward?
Thank you. Before answering that question, I would like to highlight again that how important thoughts we've heard in the last couple of 40 minutes. There are some things I would like to refer to both in Alexander's and also in Edsson's speeches. I mean, I would like to emphasize again the importance of the collaboration, as this is a value chain. I mean, Edsson highlighted the importance, and I couldn't be more happy hearing that, the importance of new technologies, the importance of thinking out of the box, especially in such a situation. And I mean, Eurocontrol has always been known as being a very pioneering and leading technology type of provider, trying to find out new things and being eager to start and deal with new things. But that requires financials, and that goes back to Alexander's saying, where he was saying that he would like to see more support from ANSPs as an airline operator, which is a kind of contradiction, because if the ANSP supports the airline operation, which is currently the situation, and I think that this support cannot be on the deficit of another value chain member, meaning another stakeholder, then an ANSP wouldn't be in a situation to focus on future R&D and future opportunities, unless the technology provider is ready to support the ANSP with deferrals, with other financial solutions. So that goes all the way through the value chain. So that requires, again, a very, very cooperative approach, and that's pretty much true for technology. Another thing to Alexander, I was very happy to hear that he's in direct contact, or his company is in direct contact with some ANSPs regarding Prosperous flights. That was one of our biggest uncertainty when we were planning the capacities in all the plans what we've been putting together, because that was one of the influencing factor which highly influenced our capacity forecasts. And without having a proper forecast accuracy, knowing that demand was growing up until the crisis came in, continuously growing, the question only was that what is the extent of that growth? Now we are in a different situation. Capacity is not going to, I mean, probably capacity will be an issue in the future, but that will be a new normal. So therefore, it would be very, very vital and important not to have inputs only through the IATA, but having direct conversations with airlines operators about their future thoughts and also future demands and plans for recovery. Going back to the questions directly, I mean, of course, we all do this standard 3 steps process of a crisis management, where first we actually manage the accurate crisis, and that's what we also did. We set up a team, we secure and check our financials, we adjust the operations according to the demand. But more importantly, and though the question was referring to the Q4 and Q4 recovery, I would rather put it in a different perspective, because we have to define somehow the new normal. And it's a very relevant question for us now, because we are just about to finish our strategic period from 2016 to 2020, and we originally planned to start for 2021-25 for the next strategic period. But now we're in a situation where we have to define the new normal, and our approach is definitely is that we set up the crisis management. That's very operational, but afterwards we will set up a kind of transition period. And as I feel, but that's more of a feeling, we are now collecting a lot of information about all this from all the stakeholders and participants of the market. There will be a transition period and probably 2020 might equal 2019 in a certain way. And this is the point where we can restart the engines. But that's more true for the processes. I think that the collaborative crisis management or collaborative contingency planning should be more based on technologies, not processes. I all the time emphasize that because that's, I think, will be the driver of the future, and that's now the time for having disruptive technologies coming in. And I think that we've reached that point now. And also, it's very important that it's not only a local. It shouldn't be a local contingency plan for countries. So the sovereignty is not going to be a real issue here. It has to be regional, and it's not only has to be regional, but it has to be also among industry players. And moreover, it has to be state, ANSP, airlines, airport, tech suppliers. So all the members of the value chain, or all the members of that ecosystem, has to work together. Otherwise, it will get into, I mean, absolute useless conversations and discussions, whether is it needed, whether it's 4%, 10%, 6% of an airline's cost, the ATM costs or not, is it the relevant cost or not, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, being in the forefront of technological advancement, and that's again refers to Alexander, they did a lot of developments earlier than we're supposed to do it, like the free route airspace, what we introduced in 2015, very first in Europe, 7 years ahead, which not only had to reduce the CO2 emission, but also actually helps the airlines to fly the shortest possible and the most direct flight through the airspaces. That's what we're expanding now on a regional level in collaboration with other ANSPs in our region. The same applies. Again, I know that the airlines are not eager now to go for and pay for technological development, but there are certain things like the CPDLC, which again has been introduced quite advanced with us, which again can help with the efficiency. And true, the contingency plan have to build up based on that technology, and again with enabling accurate planning. So this is what I can emphasize, and also again I cannot re-emphasize enough the importance of the value chain, and all the stakeholders, all the members of this value chain, or all the stakeholders supposed to be satisfied with that situation, even though temporarily there can be certain solutions, but in the long run we have to maintain the situation as it was, or define the new normal. So thank you. That's what I was thinking of. Stuart, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Attila. Thanks for that answer. My gosh, our time is up. It feels like we've only just started. There are so many questions here. We're certainly not going to be able to get to the questions that have come forward. It's just great to see that we had 160 delegates attend this webinar, which shows that there's great interest in the subject. And it's very, very evident that the recovery of the aviation industry is going to have to be a collaborative effort from all stakeholders. We're all going to have to work together for the survival of ANSPs, for the survival of airlines, private aviation, for technological suppliers, the industry. We all are dependent on the recovery of aviation as a result of COVID-19, and we're going to have to work together and to come together with recovery plans. We're going to have to share information as quickly and as often as possible. As soon as the countries start opening up, the airlines start putting their schedules out, they need to share that information with the ANSPs. If the ANSPs can't meet that demand, that they don't have the capacity for that demand, they need to share that immediately with the airlines to say that there could be delays, and ATFM measures may be put in place to manage that. The vendors, the technological vendors need to be called in and to ensure that all systems are operating. So all I'm just trying to say is that it's absolutely apparent that if ever collaborative decision making and working together and not working in silos is going to have to take place during this period. we are in a completely new dispensation of never having faced things like this before, and we're all going to have to work together to ensure for the continuance of a strong aviation sector. So to the panel, thank you very much for your contributions. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your inputs and for your expertise. To everybody who's listened, thank you for attending. Please take the story out there that we need to work together to recover from this dreadful virus that has gone throughout the world. So thank you very much. Jody, over to you.
Thank you again. Thank you so much, Stuart, and all the speakers for participating today. Just a reminder, we will be recording, we have recorded this webinar, so we will send you out a link in the next coming days if you wish to watch it again or share it. The next webinar will take place on Wednesday, the 3rd of June, and don't forget to fill out the survey once you exit the webinar. Thank you all again for your time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.